Hey there, welcome back to the channel. So earlier today I did a video to show you how I took some trades from these particular levels. It was a candle pattern that I wanted you to watch: this candle, and this candle. And I'm going to link that video down below, but I also wanted to do a video on VWAP and intraday VWAP, because this particular trade I only took 2 trades on, and this particular trade I only took 2 trades on. But as you can see from my trade log, I took 15 trades this day. So I wanted to show you some of the other trades that I took this day, and I wanted to note for you again that this was a day where my average trade time was 22 seconds and my longest trade time was under a minute. And that's huge for me. That's exactly the way I want things to be. I take small scalps, 125, 150, 200 bucks. I take a number of trades throughout the day, and I take them, I get out, and I wait for the next trade, because the more time that I'm sitting in a trade in the market, the more at risk I am. So today, what I also want to talk to you about is VWAP, and specifically VWAP and intraday VWAP, because they differ, and if you're not using both on your charts, you should be. So here's an example of one of my charts, and I wanted to note for you, and I'm only putting on VWAP and previous day's VWAP close, because that's significant on this chart as well. And I wanted to note for you the difference between VWAP and intraday VWAP if you're not familiar, because you should be tracking them on all of your charts. And what I mean by all of your charts, if you've been following me at all, you know that when I trade ES, I always watch SPY, SPX, NDX, Qs, NQ, and both VIXs, VIX and VX futures. But anyway, getting back to VWAP. VWAP is the volume weighted average price, and it's tied to a particular time of day. Now with ES futures, because ES opens at 5 p.m. Central Time every day, or at least Sunday through Friday, you're going to have VWAP starting at that time. But intraday VWAP starts when the market opens at regular trading hours. So you'll see, if we scroll back a little further, you'll see that VWAP runs in the pre-market from the night before, and then intraday VWAP will start right when the market opens. And sometimes they will remain divergent through the day. Other times they will start out the day and parallel each other or lay on top of each other throughout most of the day. But it's these days when they are separate, you want to be able to watch both lines, because they are both very, very significant for the algos that are trading the market, and they are instructed to acknowledge when it comes in touch with VWAP, when it comes in touch with intraday VWAP. So here's an example where the market opened and drove down to this level that we discussed earlier in this previous video and took a bounce. When it first touched intraday VWAP, it did nothing but continue on. But when it touched VWAP, it retreated, and you look at that and you say, well, I mean, that's such a small candle, that's nothing at all. But that's actually at least a 4-point move. That's 200 bucks right there. So it retreated, and then it blew through VWAP, and then sat on VWAP, and then continued on. And then it retraced, and we talked about this explosion candle right here, and it came back, and it bounced right here on intraday VWAP again. And then it came down, danced on a couple of wicks right here, bounced again, and then came down and bounced on regular VWAP. Then it bounced right through intraday VWAP, came back and sat on intraday VWAP, and then continued up. And then came back and tested VWAP, and tested VWAP, and tested VWAP, and tested VWAP, and tested VWAP. It's a very, very valuable thing to have in your charts. If there was only one thing that you were absolutely going to have in your charts, it would be VWAP and intraday VWAP. Now, I'm going to switch charts here and switch to a 3-panel chart so that we can at least watch ES, SPY, and SPX together. And this is going back a number of days. I think it's going back 10 days. And on this particular day, we saw on ES, it was 9:15 Central Time. So the market's been open for about 45 minutes. And it's running up, and it's running up, and it's running up. And it's quite a ways from the 100 EMA and 100 SMA and the 200 EMA and the 200 SMA and also the intraday VWAP. And what you can't see is that VWAP, the regular VWAP for ES, is way down here. So they're very, very divergent on this particular day. So on this particular day, we've got the market running up and it retraces back to the 100s. And also on SPY, it retraces to the 100s. And also on SPX, it retraces back to this is the 100 SMA on SPX. And this convergence made for a very nice bounce here and then again here. And then when price decided to come back down, it decided that it was done with testing the 100 EMAs. So it decided that it wanted to roll over and test the 200 EMAs. So that's exactly what we have here. We have ES testing a very close together 200 EMA and SMA, and also there's a pivot line right there. And on SPX, we're still testing the 100 EMA over here. But on SPY, we are also down to the 200s. And then it bounces, and where does it bounce to? It bounces only up to the 100 EMA. Here and here. And decides to roll over. And where does it roll over to? It rolls over to SPY's intraday VWAP, which is precisely on SPX to be the 200 SMA, and it also ends up being the intraday VWAP on ES. So that is the kind of convergence that we look for between different indicators. In SPY's case and in ES's case, it was the intraday VWAP and pivot points and the 100 EMA and SMA and the 200 EMA and SMAs. That's exactly how we look for convergence on multiple charts to make sure that we get pinpoint entries. Now, this next day, we've got a lot going on here, so let me break it down for you. We start the day with divergent VWAPs on ES. Intraday VWAP starts up here. Overnight VWAP is down here. But SPYs will often run together. So the overnight VWAP for SPY, which is a little bit of a misnomer, so to speak, because even though SPY sort of moves overnight, you can't trade it overnight, but it does track a VWAP. So more often than not, you'll find that the overnight VWAP for SPY and the intraday VWAP will be about at the same spot when the market opens, and they'll run sort of in a parallel fashion. Of course, you're not going to find VWAP or anything volume related like volume profile on SPX or NDX or VIX because those are not volume-based instruments. But we look for other things on those instruments. So this day started on ES with the cyan blue line, and the market immediately bounced up to this 100 SMA and rolled over. Now, this is not a trade I would take. Not enough confirmation on anything, and certainly not excited about trading the first candle. But it danced around up here for about 4 or 5 candles until it plunged down, and I saw that half gap. The yellow dashed line was here on SPY and was here on ES. And I thought, that's a likely bounce. But where did it go? It went down and touched VWAP. Now, the thing that you can acknowledge about these candles is that it never closed below half gap. It went down and touched VWAP, but look at the length of that wick right there. So by virtue of the fact that it never closed down here means that the market was acknowledging that half gap was there and that it was important. And where did it bounce to? It bounced up to this combination area of the 200 EMA, the 200 SMA, orange dashed, and the intraday VWAP line. And then it rolled back down and came down to this 200 SMA from the 5-minute chart, which I've talked about before. I like to watch the 200 EMA and SMA from the 5-minute chart on a 1-minute chart. And the way I do that is by setting the length to 1000. And more often than not, the very, very first touch of the day that an instrument like ES or SPY makes on the 200 EMA or SMA from the 5-minute chart, more often than not, it's going to reverse there. Or at the very least, you're going to get some sort of a relief bounce or relief reversal. So on this first touch, it bounced. And where did it bounce on SPY? That thick gray dashed line is the previous day close for SPY. And of course on SPX, there's nothing right in here, but it is still sort of clinging to the 100 EMA and SMA and is reaching down to see if it's going to get involved with the 200 EMA and SMA. So what happens later? It bounces. SPY bounces off of previous day close and it goes right up to its VWAP areas. Intraday and the regular VWAP in white. Now you say, well, it reached up all the way to here. Yes, a significant line. That's the 200 SMA dashed orange, but it never closed above the VWAP. So it did reach up there in exuberance, but it never closed above VWAP, which is why we know that the market was acknowledging that VWAP was there and it rolled strongly from there. And then we come in later that same day and we see the market has risen and has rolled over. And where does ES roll over to? The cyan blue line is the RTH open and the intraday VWAP line right there. On SPY, it's the combination VWAP and intraday line and the RTH open, the cyan blue line right there. And on SPX, it is also the cyan blue line with the entry right there. And you may say, well, ES and SPY and SPX, they're exactly the same. They're going to have the same entry points. They're going to have the same lines that show the RTH open, but that is not the case at all. They're often in very different spots, maybe 3 or 4 points apart. On this particular day, it wouldn't have surprised me at all if ES's RTH open was right here, SPY's was right here, and SPX's would have been maybe here where this red dashed line is. But when they line up, and if there's some sort of combination with something else like VWAP, it makes for a very, very high likelihood of a bounce. So it looks as though I've done it again. I've made too much video and I'm going to have to split it up into 2 parts. So let me say at this point that if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a like and subscribe if you would like to be informed of when I put up new videos. And do let me know if you'd like to see me live stream my trading. That's something that I've been talking about, and if you leave me a message below and let me know that if you'd like to see me do it, I can get that up and off the ground. In the meantime, I'm going to end the video here, and I'm going to put a link to part 2 of the VWAPs video down below in the notes. And also, there should be a link just above with a thumbnail that shows part 2 of the VWAPs video. So thank you again for watching and have a great day.